My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 29 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've been called a lot of things. But the one I'll never forget is whispered at the edge of a party, just loud enough for the laughter to ripple around the room like poison in champagne. "She's just a waitress," my mother said. She didn't know I was standing 10 feet behind her, holding the tray of smoked salmon bites she was too busy gossiping to notice. That night changed everything. But to really understand what happened the next morning, when I arrived in a Rolls Royce and the manager said, "Welcome back, boss," you need to know what led up to that moment. I was 25 when I dropped out of my MBA program to take care of my grandmother. She had raised me when my parents were too busy chasing business success and social clout. While they traveled and built their empire, it was Grandma Joan who packed my school lunches, read me bedtime stories, and taught me that kindness wasn't weakness. It was strength. When she got sick, I couldn't just put her in a home like my parents suggested. So I came back to my hometown and took a job at Delaney's, a local upscale restaurant, waiting tables at night and caregiving during the day. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. It also gave me something else: a front row seat to the kind of power games my family thrived on. My mother, Carol Morgan, ran a local PR firm. Think pristine white blouses, sharp heels, and even sharper smiles. My father, Harold, was a partner in a logistics company. My younger sister, Vanessa, had just gotten engaged to the son of one of my father's business associates. That engagement party? It was the social event of the month, and apparently I wasn't invited. Technically. Vanessa had said, "You're welcome to stop by after your shift, Rach." No need to dress up. No need to dress up. That should have been the first clue. But I went anyway. I clocked out at Delaney's at 7:45 p.m., still in uniform, and walked the 3 blocks to my parents' house. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I just wanted to congratulate my sister. I brought her a small gift, a vintage pendant Grandma Joan had once told me she loved as a child. I walked in through the side entrance like I used to when I lived there. The house hadn't changed. Same polished floors, same glimmering chandelier in the foyer. I made my way toward the garden where the party was being held. That's when I heard it. "She's just a waitress," my mother whispered, her voice honeyed with mock concern. I mean, it's tragic, really. So much potential. "And she serves food now." For tips, a chorus of polite laughter followed. "She won't be here long," she added. "She said she might stop by. Let's pray she doesn't bring one of those tragic trays with her." I stood there, rooted to the spot. I hadn't brought a tray, but I might as well have. When I finally stepped outside and walked onto the terrace, a few heads turned. My mother's smile stiffened, like plastic. Vanessa blinked like she didn't recognize me. And my father? He avoided eye contact entirely. I handed Vanessa the small wrapped gift. "Congratulations," I said, my voice even. "Oh," she said awkwardly. "Thanks, you didn't have to. We weren't sure you'd make it." Neither was I. The silence that followed was unbearable. I left after 15 minutes before the first toast. Nobody tried to stop me. That night, I sat alone in my small apartment above the bakery, the pendant box unopened on the kitchen table. My grandmother had passed away 3 months earlier, and I was alone for the first time in my life. But that night, something changed. Not just the shame or the sting of my mother's voice. No, what changed was a decision. I was done being quiet. Done letting them define me. Because what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just a waitress. I had started a side business during those long nights after my shifts, an anonymous blog about restaurant management and profitability. That blog had gone viral in certain circles. Investors had reached out. Deals had been signed. And 3 weeks before that party, I had officially become the majority shareholder of the company that owned Delaney's. The restaurant I had waited tables in? I owned it now. But I hadn't told anyone yet. That was about to change. The next morning, I showed up at Delaney's in a charcoal pantsuit, heels, and a quiet fire burning behind my eyes. I stepped out of a car I'd had delivered from a luxury rental service. For impact, The Rolls-Royce Phantom purred like a cat in the morning sun. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, the manager, Philip, stepped forward and smiled. "Welcome back, boss." I walked through the front doors of my own restaurant, knowing that by noon, my entire family would know exactly who I was. By 9:15 a.m., word had started to spread. In small whispers, over espresso machines and beneath polished marble countertops, staff who had once worked beside me were now realizing something had changed. That the woman they used to split late-night shifts with was now the one signing their paychecks. "Did she buy Delaney's?" "I thought she was just a waitress." "No. Did you see the car?" I heard the murmurs but kept my expression neutral as I walked through the restaurant like I had 1,000 times before. Only now, the energy around me had shifted. Respect, confusion, curiosity, even a little fear. Philip, the general manager, walked beside me, his clipboard clutched against his chest. "Everyone's in the staff room. You ready?" I nodded. "Let's not keep them waiting." He led me past the kitchen, where chefs paused mid-prep to glance in my direction, and into the staff room where around a dozen employees sat waiting. Some were newer faces, others old friends. Jess, who I used to split tables with on Friday nights. Louise from back of house. Even Yvonne, the sharp-tongued hostess who once told me I was too smart to serve food. She raised an eyebrow as I stepped in. Philip cleared his throat. "Thanks for coming in early, everyone. We have an important announcement this morning. As of last month, Delaney's changed ownership." A ripple of surprise went through the room. I kept my hands folded in front of me, the image of calm. Philip gestured to me. "Please welcome your new majority owner and executive director, Rachel Morgan." Dead silence. Jess's eyes widened. Louise let out a low whistle. Yvonne's jaw literally dropped. I took a breath and stepped forward. "Hi. I know this is unexpected. Some of you have known me as a server here. Some of you might only know my name from the roster. But for the past 2 years, I've been quietly working on building something bigger." I paused, letting the tension simmer. "Through that work, I've acquired a controlling interest in this restaurant and 2 others in the metro area. Delaney's is the flagship, and starting today, we're making some changes." Another beat. "We're increasing wages by 8% across the board. We're adding wellness stipends, and everyone here will now get quarterly bonuses based on performance and team success." Gasps and murmurs broke out. Jess put a hand over her mouth. "But more than that," I continued, voice steady, "I want this place to be what it always could have been. A restaurant that values people, not just profits. I've been on your side of the table. I know what it's like to pick up a shift on your birthday because rent's due. I know what it's like to smile while customers talk down to you. That ends here." Luis raised his hand slowly. "So, you really own this place now?" I smiled. "I do, and I plan to make it better." Jess laughed softly. "My mom is never going to believe this. She still thinks you're bussing tables." Yvonne stood slowly. "So all those nights we thought you were just another burned-out grad school dropout." "I was," I said honestly, "but I also had a plan." Her gaze flicked toward Philip, then back to me. "And now you're the boss." "I'm still Rachel, but yes, I'm also the boss." It was surreal, standing there in a room where I used to blend into the background, and yet I wasn't angry. I wasn't there for revenge. Not exactly. But my family? They were going to find out. Soon. Because at 11 a.m., my mother had scheduled a client lunch. At Delaney's, in the private dining room. She had no idea. I turned to Philip. "Let's make sure everything is perfect. I'll be sitting in on that lunch." He nodded, hiding a grin. "Of course, boss." By 10:45 a.m., the room was set. Fresh linens, polished glassware, the menu customized with the client's name at the top. Carol Morgan PR had spared no expense. I stood just out of sight, behind the tinted glass partition as my mother breezed in wearing her signature power suit and heels that clicked with authority. She didn't notice me. Not yet. She was too busy barking instructions to the waiter, Marcus, who was clearly trying not to roll his eyes. "Get my usual table," she snapped, "and make sure no one disturbs us." 10 minutes later, her client arrived. A woman in a crisp navy blazer and expensive pearls. They exchanged fake smiles and air kisses. As they were seated, my mother leaned in close and whispered something. And just like that, I heard it again. "She's just a waitress. My older daughter. Brilliant, but emotionally impulsive. Wasted at all waiting tables." Only this time I smiled. Because in less than 5 minutes, I was going to walk through that door, take the head seat at the table, and introduce myself not as her daughter, but as the new executive director of Delaney's. And I couldn't wait to see her face when she realized the waitress now owned the floor she was standing on. I watched them from behind the frosted glass. My mother all poise and performance, gesturing gracefully with her hands, a curated smile plastered on her face. She was in her element, charming a new client, flaunting her status, casually humiliating anyone who didn't match her version of success. "Rachel?" Philip whispered from behind me. "Are you sure you want to do this yourself?" I nodded. "It has to come from me." He gave a small, proud smile. "Then go knock them out." At exactly 11:07 a.m., I walked into the private dining room. The door slid open silently. My heels clicked against the polished floor. Deliberately so. My mother glanced up, ready to scold a server for interrupting. And then she froze. So did the client. I stepped forward calmly and extended a hand to the woman across from her. "Hello, I'm Rachel Morgan, Executive Director of Delaney's and majority shareholder in Morgan Hospitality Group. I just wanted to personally welcome you and thank you for dining with us." The client blinked in surprise, then stood to shake my hand. "Oh, well, it's an honor. I wasn't expecting—" My mother finally found her voice. "Rachel? What? What are you doing here?" "Running the restaurant," I replied simply. "Didn't Philip tell you? Delaney's changed ownership. I oversee all operations now." There was no anger in my tone, just professionalism. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Her face paled, the fake smile dissolving under the weight of reality. The client turned to her. "This is your daughter? You didn't mention she owned the restaurant." My mother laughed weakly. "Oh, well, Rachel's had many ventures. I wasn't aware she owned this one." I raised an eyebrow. "You weren't aware because you never asked." There was silence. A heavy, pregnant pause where everyone seemed to breathe in the shift of power. I gestured toward the menus. "Please enjoy your lunch. The chef has prepared a few specials for you, and everything today is on the house." The client smiled, impressed. "Thank you, Ms. Morgan. That's very generous of you." "You're welcome. If you need anything, I'll be just outside." I turned and left the room without looking back, but I didn't need to. I could feel the tension simmering behind me like a pot ready to boil over. Back in the hallway, Philip handed me a fresh espresso. "You good?" "Better than good," I said, taking a sip. I think she's finally speechless. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because that evening I received a text from Vanessa. "Dinner at Mom and Dad's, 6:30. Apparently there's something we all need to discuss." I almost ignored it. But something in me, a flicker of the old Rachel who still craved acknowledgement, told me to go. At 6:25, I pulled into the driveway in the Rolls-Royce again. A different car than the one I'd rented that morning. This one? I'd bought it. With cash. The sun was beginning to set, casting long golden streaks over the familiar suburban lawn. The house looked exactly the same as it always had. White shutters, blue hydrangeas, and that perfect red front door that used to feel like a welcome sign. Now, it just looked like a stage. Inside, everyone was already gathered. Vanessa sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. My father stood near the fireplace, drink in hand. And my mother? She was pacing. She stopped when she saw me. "You could have given us a heads up," she said flatly. "Would it have made a difference?" I asked, setting my keys down calmly. "You embarrassed me," she snapped. "In front of a major client." "No," I corrected. "You embarrassed yourself by lying about who I was. I just told the truth." My father raised his hand. "Let's not fight. Carol, sit down." She did, reluctantly. Vanessa finally looked up. "So, you really own Delaney's now?" "I do, and 2 more locations, and we're opening a 4th next spring." My mother snorted softly. "With what money?" "With the money I made from my blog, private consulting, and a few smart partners who believed in me before my own family did." Silence. Then my father asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell us?" I shrugged. "You never listened. Why would this have been different?" My mother's lip curled. "So what is this? Revenge? Prove us wrong theater?" "No," I said, standing straighter. "This is me living the life I built without your approval. But today made one thing clear. Your opinion doesn't define me anymore." Vanessa nodded slowly. "I mean, respect." It was the closest thing to praise I'd ever heard from her. My father cleared his throat. "Well, congratulations, Rachel. That's quite an achievement." I didn't reply, because the truth was, I didn't need their validation anymore. I stood there in the living room of the people who used to belittle me, now watching them squirm in the shadow of their own assumptions. And for the first time, I wasn't angry. I was free. 2 days passed before I heard from my mother again. A single text. "Are you free for coffee?" Just us. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure if it was an olive branch or a trap. We hadn't had a real one-on-one conversation in over a year. Even when Grandma Joan passed, my mother was all logistics. Funeral arrangements, seating charts, menu selections. Not grief, not connection. Still, something told me to go. We met at a sleek little cafe downtown, the kind she always preferred. All white marble and glass, expensive but minimal. I arrived first. She came in 3 minutes late, as usual, and sat across from me without a word. Her coffee order was complicated, of course. Mine was black. The silence between us felt heavier than it used to. She took a sip, placed the cup down carefully, and finally spoke. "You didn't just buy a restaurant," she said quietly. "You built an empire." I said nothing. "I looked up the blog," she continued. "Didn't even know you wrote." "You never asked." A long pause. "I suppose I didn't." She looked older than I remembered. Not physically, but in her eyes. Like something inside her was starting to fray at the edges. She glanced at me again, hesitant now. Vulnerable in a way I had never seen. "Why didn't you tell me, Rachel?" "About any of it?" "I tried," I said. "A dozen times. You'd cut me off, change the subject. Compare me to Vanessa. It became easier not to try." She exhaled slowly and stared into her cup. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From failure," she said, finally meeting my gaze. "From embarrassment. From throwing your life away chasing ideas that didn't make sense to us." "Didn't make sense to you," I corrected, "but they made sense to me. I know that now." Another pause. This time I let it sit. Let her feel the discomfort I had carried for years. She glanced out the window, then said, "Your grandmother would be proud." That hit harder than I expected. She was the only one who never doubted me, I said, my voice quiet. "She believed in things we didn't understand," my mother admitted, "and now I wish I'd listened to her more." There it was. Not quite an apology, but something close. She stirred her coffee again, slowly. "Your father and we didn't know how to support something we couldn't control. We raised you to follow a plan. When you deviated from it, we panicked. And judged." "Yes," she said to her credit. "And judged." We sat in silence for a while, the hum of the cafe surrounding us like static. Then she asked something unexpected. Would you ever consider consulting for my agency? I blinked. What? PR is changing. Digital strategy, storytelling. Your skills could help us. And frankly, I'd rather bring you in than hire another overpriced agency that doesn't get it. It wasn't just a peace offering. It was respect, finally verbalized. I considered it. Let me think about it. She nodded. Of course. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. She placed it on the table, sliding it toward me. What's this? I found it in Joan's things after she passed. She said it was meant for you. I opened it slowly. Inside was a delicate gold necklace. A locket. I recognized it immediately. She used to wear it every Sunday. I clicked it open. Inside was a tiny photo of me at 5 years old and a folded slip of paper. I unfolded it carefully. In Grandma Joan's handwriting were the words, "Never forget what you're capable of, even when they do." Tears welled before I could stop them. I closed the locket and held it tight in my palm. She always saw you, my mother whispered, even when we didn't. I nodded. She left me the house, I said quietly. In her will. I know. I plan to keep it, restore it, maybe turn it into a creative retreat for young women starting over. She smiled a little. That sounds like something she would have loved. We sat there in silence, the air a little less tense, the space between us a little less jagged. Maybe this wasn't about winning anymore. Maybe it never was. It was about choosing to become more. Not to prove others wrong, but to prove yourself right. 2 weeks later, Vanessa got married. A lavish affair at a vineyard just outside the city. Think chandeliers hanging from trees, violin quartets playing pop music, and centerpieces so large you could barely see across the table. My mother had started referring to it as the event of the season in her group chats. I had kept my distance during the planning, not out of resentment, but because I had stopped asking to be involved in things I wasn't really welcome to participate in. Until I received the invitation. Hand-delivered, formal, embossed in gold foil. Inside was a handwritten note from Vanessa. I know we've been distant, but I want you there. You matter, even when I don't say it. Love. V. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. But it was real. So I went. And this time I didn't walk in unnoticed. I pulled up in my own Rolls-Royce, no longer rented, but purchased the week prior after closing a multi-year consulting contract with a restaurant investment group out of Chicago. They'd discovered me through my blog and were interested in buying into my brand. The first meeting was only supposed to be 30 minutes. It lasted 5 hours. The contract they offered changed my life. Again. As I stepped out of the car, dressed in a navy silk gown and classic heels, people turned. Whispers started, polite but curious. Is that her? Rachel Morgan? I hadn't been to a family function in years that didn't involve hushed judgments behind glassware. This time was different. Philip, my manager, had arranged for a small team to assist with catering oversight, one of the side businesses I'd recently acquired. He greeted me at the valet with a nod and a grin. Everything's running smooth, boss. Thanks, I said. And make sure the bride's cake gets staged early. Vanessa's been nervous about the photos. He gave me a mock salute and disappeared into the crowd. The ceremony was beautiful. Vanessa looked radiant, and I genuinely meant it. As I watched her walk down the aisle, I didn't feel envy or anger. I felt peace. She had followed the path laid out for her, and it fit her. I had forged my own, and it fit me. At the reception, I found my seat at one of the central tables, not off in the corner like past events, not buried in the overflow section behind the gift table. My place card sat directly across from my father. He raised a glass slightly in greeting. Glad you came. Wouldn't miss it. My mother hovered nearby, busying herself with introductions and social pleasantries. But occasionally I caught her watching me, not in judgment. Not even in comparison. Just watching. Halfway through dinner, a family friend leaned across the table. Carol tells us you own that restaurant downtown now. Delaney's, is it? I nodded politely. Yes, and a few others. We're expanding next year. How wonderful. Your parents must be so proud. My father actually smiled at that. We are. And for the first time, I believed he meant it. Later that night, Vanessa pulled me aside. We stood under a tree strung with fairy lights, the vineyard glowing around us like something out of a dream. Hey, she said. Thanks for being here. You didn't have to invite me, I replied. But I'm glad you did. She looked down at her bouquet, then back at me. I heard what Mom said at the engagement party. That caught me off guard. You did? She didn't know I was nearby. I never knew it got that bad between you and them. I'm sorry. Not your fault, I said. But I didn't stop it either, she admitted. I let them talk about you like you were lost. And I should have known better. I do know better. I nodded. You're here now. That matters more. She laughed softly. I told Daniel, the first person I was afraid to introduce to you, that my sister could out-negotiate his entire boardroom if she wanted. I laughed too. Let's hope I never have to. Then she grew serious. I admire you, Rach. I always have. Even when you scared the hell out of me with your choices. Thanks, I said, the words catching a little in my throat. That means more than you know. The music swelled behind us. The DJ had switched to something upbeat, and the dance floor beckoned. You coming? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. We walked back toward the crowd together, two sisters finally standing on even ground, not because we had chosen the same path, but because we had finally chosen to respect each other's. 3 months later, I stood on the porch of Grandma Jones' old house. The ivy had started creeping up the columns again, and the shutters needed repainting. But the porch swing still creaked the same way it had when I was 10 years old, legs too short to reach the floor, listening to Grandma talk about resilience like it was a muscle you could train. It was the first weekend of renovations. The house was mine now, officially transferred, keys in hand, plans drawn. I was turning it into what I always dreamed it could be, a creative retreat for women starting over. Women who had been dismissed, silenced, underestimated, just like I had been. The contractors were arriving the next day, but I wanted to spend one night here first, alone, to feel the energy of the place, to say goodbye to the old ghosts and hello to something new. I wandered through the rooms, fingers trailing along faded wallpaper. The dining table was still there, the one where Grandma taught me to balance a checkbook and where I once cried over a failed exam she told me didn't define me. It felt right to begin again here. As the sun dipped below the hills, casting golden light across the hardwood floor, I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was my father. I met him at the front door. Thought I'd find you here, he said, holding a paper bag that smelled faintly of takeout. I figured you'd call first. He shrugged. Wanted to surprise you. Brought your favorite, Thai, from that little place you used to beg us to try. I stepped aside, letting him in. We ate at the old table, the same chairs still creaking beneath us. There wasn't much small talk, just quiet chewing and the occasional shared glance. But when the food was gone and the silence lingered, he finally spoke. You were always meant for more. I looked up. That's not what you used to say. I know, he admitted. And I was wrong. I thought more meant titles and corner offices. I didn't understand that it could mean freedom, or vision, or building something from the ground up. I let that settle. Then I asked, why now? He sighed. Because I've been thinking. About the way we raised you. About all the moments we dismissed what didn't look familiar. We thought success had one shape. You proved it doesn't. I swallowed hard, surprised by the emotion rising in my chest. I was proud of Vanessa because she followed the path I knew. But I'm proud of you because you didn't. and still made it. There it was. The thing I had wanted to hear since the first time I waited a table and felt like less because of it. I smiled. Thank you. We sat in silence again, but this time it was warm. He glanced around. So this place, you're really going to turn it into a retreat? Yeah, for women who need a reset, who've been talked down to, or pushed out, or made to feel small. Your mother told me. She said it's the most meaningful thing you've ever done. I raised an eyebrow. She said that? He chuckled. She did. She's changing too. Slowly. It's hard for her, being wrong. I nodded. It was hard for me too, but healing starts somewhere. He stood and walked to the living room, picking up a photo of Grandma Joan from the mantel. She'd be proud. She always was, I whispered. Later that night, after he left, I walked outside and stood barefoot on the grass. The moon hung low and the air was heavy with the scent of lilacs. I looked up at the house, peeling paint and all, and felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. I no longer needed anyone to clap for me. I no longer craved validation in rooms where I was once laughed at. I had become the woman my younger self needed. Not perfect, but whole. And when I stood in front of those women one day, those future guests of this retreat, I would tell them, you are not just a waitress, or a secretary, or a divorcee, or a single mom, or a woman starting over. You are more than the labels they gave you, and your path is not just valid, it's powerful, just like mine.